Um, that does a couple of things. One, it kind of gives you an introduction to that person. The principal can put a voice with the piece of paper that they have. In most cases, you know, they say that the paper will get you the interview, and it will. But you can add to that paper, particularly if you have a good phone presence. You can add to that application and to your resume by putting your voice and by putting your personality into that principal's mind. And that works really well. The other thing that it does is if that principal has received 20 applications for this position, in 99% of the time, the principal is going to go and look while you're on the phone to make sure that all of your materials are there. That means he's bringing your application out of probably a pile of applications and putting yours on top, okay? It also makes the impression, and you know, I suppose there are times when you can hurt yourself with your phone personality, but I think most of the time it's going to tell that person, hey, this is somebody that's really interested and really wants to work in my school, and I need to look at that. So don't be afraid to make a contact. I think another great way to do that is to drop your resume or your application off at the building and hand it to the building principal, if at all possible. You don't want to take up a lot of that person's time. You might call ahead and say, I would like to drop my application off. I would like to meet the principal. Is there a time when I can have 2 minutes of his or her time? And the secretary with whom you speak will almost always give you that opportunity and say, yes, if you come in after 3:30 today, you should be able to say hi. Come in, hand the application, hand the resume to the person, introduce yourself, and again, don't take a lot of time, but put a face with the paper. And that is always a huge advantage for you, particularly if you can make a good impression. And doing that, you don't have to put on that brand new suit to do that, but certainly don't go in shorts or cutoffs and a t-shirt. You know, look halfway professional, but you don't have to get dressed up for it. That's not an interview. You're just dropping off your paperwork and trying to make a little bit of an impression. After that, and when you're in there for 2 or 3 or 5 minutes talking to the person, find out what the plans are for interviewing. How soon will you be interviewing? Is there anything particular that you're looking for? Is there anything else that I can do as an interested applicant to make myself available for this position? Find out what the timelines are. You know, how soon they plan to interview. All of us have a great deal of hiring to do. Now, are most of you graduating now, or do you still have coursework to do in the spring? Still have coursework, or are you looking for jobs now? You're out there ready to go in January. It's semester. Okay, you've got some advantages there, and you have some advantages. One, because there's not a lot of people at midterm that are out there looking for jobs. Two, there are always resignations or there are leaves of absences that occur at the semester time. So you don't have as many jobs available as you will have in the summer for the fall. But the ones that are there, I think you have a better shot at picking something up at this point in time. So I think you're lucky with that. Again, it's time, okay? And for the most part, unless it's a last-minute thing, for the most part, principals know who they're going to lose this semester. People who have a spouse that's been transferred, or if there's a maternity leave coming up, they know that now. So, and I would guess that at least by mid-November, those jobs will be posted, and you should start looking. I would say by November 1st, November 15th for those semester openings. So that's a good thing. Again, you have an opportunity to present yourself, and what I did is I kept 2 years of applications and resumes for every position. So for science, I always kept a backlog of 2 years, and I would go back to those if I needed to. But if somebody walks in the door who wanted to teach chemistry for me and I had a chemistry opening, I'm certainly going to consider that person right now because you're available. And sometimes, 2 years out, people have already taken jobs and they don't want to change at that point or whatever. So you have some advantages there. So don't think that just because you're a midterm grad that it's going to be an impossible chore for finding a position for the second semester. Also, don't be afraid to go in and try to be a long-term sub. Sometimes the maternity leaves in particular aren't open as full positions, but they are open for a full-time sub position. And I think that's a great opportunity for you to get into a building and to really have a semester heads up on everybody else that'll be a rookie teacher next fall. You get a little bit of experience, you're in your own classroom, you're doing a lot of things on your own, even though the person that's on leave may give you a lot of directives and set a lot of expectations for you. But I think you'll have a chance to just get a heads up on everybody else and some experience. So that's a good thing. After you have brought your application in, dropped it off, have a feel for when the interview process will begin. All of us interview those toughest positions first. So if you're an elementary third grade teacher and you're looking for that job, there may be an elementary psychologist that needs to be hired first, and the principal is going to put the effort into that position simply because it's harder to fill. So don't kind of realize that, okay? If you're a high school social studies teacher or English teacher, those interviews are probably going to occur later in the process than that high school math teacher or that high school science teacher, simply because there aren't as many math and science people. So kind of keep that in. I know you get nervous when you're not getting interviews and when there's nothing seems to be happening for you, but realize that we do prioritize, and don't be put off by that. So find out when the interviews are going to take place. I think that's a good idea. Maybe 2 or 3 days before the interview process should begin. If you haven't heard anything, I don't think there's anything wrong with calling the principal and just say, I met you 2 weeks ago and dropped off my application and my information. I'm just wondering if you've selected the people to be interviewed. Sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. And if they say, yeah, we've already got our pool of people we're going to bring in, be courteous and say, well, if they don't work out, I would still be interested, and I would like to have the opportunity to interview in your building. And oftentimes that'll make a very, very positive impression, and you'll have an opportunity when somebody doesn't show up, or when the pool of candidates that they are bringing in, when none of them work out. So it's good to be a little aggressive, but it's bad to be too aggressive, okay? I don't think you can just sit back and just wait for everything to happen. I think you've got to put yourself out there. I think you've got to make a little extra effort. If you do that, I think it's going to pay benefits for you in the long run, okay? All right, so you get an interview, and they set up a time for you to come in. I think it's real important that before you go in, that you know a little bit, number one, about the job you're interviewing for, that you know a little bit about the community in which you're going to be interviewing, that you know a little bit about the school and the school district for which you're going to be interviewing. You can't go into a job and not know a little bit about what's going on. If you do, you're gonna be at the bottom of the list. And there's lots of ways to do that, and if you have the opportunity, if you have the time to go to the school or to the library, the community library, find the community newspaper, look back for the last month or two. There's always articles on education, even if it's a weekly newspaper, even if it's a monthly newspaper. They're probably covering the school board meetings. They're probably talking about some initiatives that are going on in the school or in the school district. Find out a little bit about the school. And that includes know what the school colors are, know what the mascot is, and you don't have to play that up in a big way, but I can tell you when people would come in and they'd have a maroon tie on, we were the Maroons, I would always make a comment about it. And sometimes it was planned, sometimes it was an accident. But it's an icebreaker, and it shows that you know a little bit about what's going on. I think it's real important that you know about any initiatives that are going on in the school or in the school district, any programs, any special funding that they might have. In the case of Champaign Unit 4 schools, we've been under a federal lawsuit for the past 6 years, 7 years. And it's important to know about that and have a little bit of an idea on how that has affected teachers, affected kids, affected the community. And that's an extreme example, but every community's got something going on, okay? And if you know a little bit about that, if you've done your homework, so that when you have the opportunity to ask questions, you can bring some of the things up in a positive way and make mention of it. There are, lots of things that you can pick up. The easiest thing is a Friday night's football score, or a music contest that happens on Saturday and the school has done really well. Even if you have no interest in football or you have no interest in music, it shows the principal, it shows the interview team that you've done your homework, and I think that's something that works out real well.
You talked about knowing something about the football scores, but at the elementary level, aren't the principals telling you that you need to know their behavior system and
Absolutely.
their reading program?
Yes. Yeah, whatever initiatives they have, whether they're a PBIS school or what kind of reading program they have, what kind of after-school support programs they have, those are things that you need to be prepared for and have a little bit of knowledge about. And that's, again, why I think it's important to talk to people from the community. If you can sit down with somebody that is familiar with the community and really familiar with the school, that's a huge advantage. But if not, just pick up what you can, but have a little bit of knowledge going in. Exactly. Yeah. Let's move into the interview piece, because that's something that you're going to have to face, and I know how intimidating that can be. And no matter how long you've done this, you're always a little intimidated with the interview process. When I applied for the position that I have now, I had to interview before a board of people, and I had been the interviewer for many, many years, but being on the other side of the table is a little nerve-wracking. So, we totally understand that. Many school districts now are using a team interview approach, okay? And I think that's what you'll see most of the time. And that team might be just 2 or 3 people, or it might be a team of 10 or 12 people. But you need to be ready for that. And I'll go through the process that we use in Unit 4 schools, or that we have used in Unit 4 schools, and I know it's very, very similar to what happens in the Chicago area, in the collar counties in particular. I know the same thing happens in Danville, Springfield, the Quad Cities, so it's not unusual. And in the smaller school districts, you probably will have a team of maybe the principal and one other person or 2 other people. In the larger schools, you're going to have a team of probably 8 or 10 people. Be prepared for that, because again, as I mentioned, it's intimidating. You're going to go into a room, you're going to be sitting in a setting similar to what is behind us. You'll be sitting right in the middle, and you're the bull in the ring, and they're going to start throwing stuff at you, and you've got to be ready for that. You have had a good education. You have had a good exposure to what's going on currently in education. You've had a good preparation for all of this. So I hope that you go in and feel pretty confident that, hey, I'm ready for this. I can do this. I can handle this. And there again, if you've done your homework and have a little bit of an idea of what's going on in that school building, you're going to be even more prepared.